Hey everyone, I am Peter G McDermott with G Plus Interviews, and tonight we bring you a really special guest. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, and I hope you will be sure to circle G Plus Interviews as we have more and great exciting interviews coming each week all year long. If you'd like to recommend somebody to appear as a future guest on G Plus Interviews, simply visit my website, petergmcdermott.com, and click on G Plus Interviews. There will be a Google form there that you can fill out with information on who you would like to see in upcoming episodes. So tonight, without further ado, I introduce you to the man behind the Hangout from Google in Seattle, Chee Chew. Chee, good evening. How are you, sir?
Hey, good to see you.
So, Chee, how can we tell how many people are watching right now?
Unfortunately, you can't right now. It's something that we're working on, but we don't have that analytics quite yet.
Okay, so by estimations, then, I'm going to go ahead and assume we have about 2.3 million people watching right now.
I think that's pretty close to right.
Yeah, that should be somewhere new. So if you are watching right now, and you're not watching this on YouTube later, to ask your questions, simply leave a comment in the thread of the live stream. We're going to be watching those, and Megan is going to be answering those. Megan Noel Ray is here with us tonight. She is our co-host, and she'll be asking all of your questions that you put in the comments below the live stream. So, Chee, without further ado, we want to get to the questions here. First of all, let's introduce you. You're from Kirkland, Washington, USA?
That's where I work right now, yeah.
Okay, and you are an engineering director at Google and working specifically on the Hangouts, correct?
That's right.
Okay, and you also went to MIT for computer science.
Yep, graduated with computer science many moons ago.
Many moons ago, so that was what, about 2 years ago, something like that?
Almost 20. Oh.
So, Chee, we're gonna get down and dirty. This is a picture that you have on your profile from 1974, which I would peg you at about what, 32 then? Is that about right? Something like that. So, Chee, the first question tonight: what is your favorite food?
My favorite food is probably lobster.
Lobster?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of just plain, not a whole lot on it. Lots of butter, I guess. But
lots of butter. Okay.
Undressed lobster.
Do you have like a side dish you like with your lobster?
Corn with lots of paprika.
Oh, paprika on the corn.
Yeah, we have this a cafeteria and headquarters of Google Plus. That's an all-vegan restaurant. It's sort of the Google Plus cafeteria, and you go there and you eat. And after eating vegan food, I find myself always hungry, like half an hour later. But when there's corn there, I get this big plate of corn, and the guys down there make fun of me because I'm always eating corn from that cafe. So
the man that likes lobster every now and then has to go down to the vegan cafe. I do like that.
That's right.
So then, Chee, what's your least favorite food? Everybody's got one.
There's not a whole lot that I dislike. It's probably like processed coconut, like like candies, the almond joy sort of things. Not a big fan of those.
Not a big fan of almond joys. All right.
Or mounds. Like the
almonds
the almonds are fine and all, but the coconut I could do without.
All right. Well then, moving into your childhood from your food interest. This is you. How old were you in this picture, Chee?
I'm guessing I'm around 10. That's why I picture from when I was in Kentucky.
Okay, so where in Kentucky were you?
I grew up in Lexington.
Oh, not far from Nashville. Not far from here at all.
Oh yeah.
So, what were your interests when you were a kid, Chee?
I did a whole lot of like Legos sort of things, and I like to play around with computer bulletin boards. I didn't do much programming. I had hardly any programming when I was a kid, but I loved going on bulletin boards back at the time with with the old modems, the 300 and 1200 baud modems, and calling in, chatting with people, all that sort of stuff. You're
really telling your age now.
I know.
The baud of your modem. So, yes. I mean, did you have a favorite type of Legos? Were you like the Lego City guy, or
No. Yeah, I like the big buckets. Like, some people like the ones where you have instructions for it. Well, my family was really poor, so we were like on welfare and all that sort of stuff. So we would go to garage sales and just buy like big tubs of people's leftover Legos that people didn't want anymore, and like that was my favorite thing, just a big tub.
So is there did you have a favorite creation when you were younger? Did you make like a scale replica of Grand Canyon? Or?
No, actually I like making cars, and my sister and I had this game where we would like play store, and like she would sell Lego pieces, and I would buy them, and then I would make cars out of them, and then she would come to buy to my store, and she would buy the cars, and then she would then take it apart and then resell me the pieces back and forth, and it kind of went back and forth over and over again. So that was kind of one of our games that we played.
When you were 10 years old, you had your own Lego stock market, and instead of buying Matchbox or Hot Wheels. That's absolutely amazing. So, what did you want to be when you grew up, Chee?
Up until like probably first year of college, I thought I was going to be a doctor. Like my mom was a nurse, and maybe it was like traditional Chinese, but like my parents were always, medicine's a good field, you should be a doctor, and so I thought I was going to be a doctor up until sort of middle of the first year of college, maybe second year of college.
All right. So, what was your first job then after you started growing up?
I worked at in the doctor theme. I worked at the College of Medicine at the University of Kentucky. I did this internship where we rotated around different departments. So, like my first year, I worked in pharmacology, and we studied sickle cell anemia and obesity, and we were trying to develop a drug that swelled your red blood cells slightly, that then kept them from sickling. And so that was our cure that we were researching for sickle cell anemia. And that was really a lot of fun. It exposed me to a lot of interesting research things, like just how you do drug tests and things like that. So that, and then sleep apnea. I worked in a sleep apnea lab where you spent all night and you watch someone sleep. And then you see them stop breathing for 30 seconds. And it's the first time you see them like completely stop breathing for 30 seconds or 45 or a minute. It's pretty shocking. And all of a sudden they start breathing again. And so you just watch that and you plot that through the night. So that was pretty cool.
So did you ever have a polysomnogram of yourself done while you were there?
I did not. The only two tests I did on myself were that. One was a breathing test to sort of measure your lung capacity, and another time when I worked in a neuroscience lab where we were testing people for nerve damage when they have accidents. Like I remember this guy who shot himself in the leg, and so we had to test to see whether there was nerve damage in it. So you would shock the person with this probe, and then you would measure how long it took for the nerves to react and cause the leg to twitch. And so you shocked them up high, and then you measured down low, and you saw the twitch. So the test I did was I shocked myself and watched my arm twitch, and sort of measured how fast that happened. And that was a little bit disconcerting because you're sitting there, and all of a sudden your arm moves, and you didn't command it to move, but it just kind of flopped around. So that was a bizarre thing.
You freeze?
Uh-oh, Peter might have frozen.
Wait, what?
Well, it wouldn't be Google Plus if there weren't a few bugs. So, joining us back live now is Chee, after that was a server hiccup, I assume, because it was not on my end.
Yeah, I think so. This is why the thing is not yet fully released.
So, for those of you waiting for Hangouts on Air to use for your business and your pages, be glad you are not embarrassing yourself with your customers quite yet, because they have not allocated their full resources there. And anyway, we're back. Anyway, so moving back to how you became a part of the Google Plus team.
So how do we get part of the Google Plus team? I guess we were part of Talk, and we were working on video on Talk initially, and that was part of the apps Gmail world, and we had implemented one-to-one video, and the team that did this is in Kirkland and also in Stockholm. And at the time, like the teams had some issues communicating with each other, which I always find ironic because we're a communications team, and we were having issues communicating with each other. And a large part of it was the time zone, but there's also something different about like being physically there, being able to walk down the hall and sort of grab hold of somebody. So someone came up with the idea of just setting up a video link. So we had a permanent link between the Kirkland office and the Stockholm office, and it was running all the time. And this was called the Hangout. And in fact, we had an internal link, so you would like go to go/hangout, and then that would take you into this video room. And that was always running. That was supposed to run 24 hours. People would just walk by. The the sound was on, but the microphone was off. So you could walk up to it, turn the microphone on, and say, "Hey, Jonas, I have something to talk to you about," and then there you go. So that's what we were working on, and then Google Plus, the project started, and Vic and Sergey wanted to have instant messaging, chat, be part of Google Plus, and that kind of makes sense. On a social product, you want some sort of chat functionality. So so they called me into a meeting and wanted to lobby me to contribute and help out the Google Plus effort. They weren't at that time asking me to join Google Plus, just asking me to have the team implement chat for Google Plus. So like we met and I said, yeah, that's fine. It makes sense. We'll do that. But there's other thing that we ought to do, which is like this video hangout sort of thing, where like it's just, you know, like imagine having a video room, your own personal room. And the idea at the time was that each person, each profile would have a dedicated video room, your personal room, and you can invite people to join your room. And so that was the idea that we had at the time. And then they's like, well, I'm not quite sure, like, what, that doesn't quite make sense. And when you explain to someone that they've never been hanging out, it sounds kind of weird. So they said, okay, I'm not quite getting it. So I said, hang on. I brought my laptop and I said, go hang out. And I popped into the video room that was linked between Kirkland and Stockholm. And they saw people, and then people in Kirkland and Stockholm were there hanging out with Vic and Sergey and Bez and a couple other folks. And then we just sort of kind of chatted really briefly, and then they like saw the potential of Hangouts through that sort of serendipitous rendezvous. So then Sergey said, well, that's cool. How long will it take for you to like prototype it and put it in? And the way that we had done this, where you like can create these rooms sort of impromptu. You don't have to like pre-reserve rooms. You could just throw one up really easily. I said, it's just a couple lines of code. You can throw it in. Like it'll take us a few minutes to do it. And Sergey like essentially said, I don't believe you. And so so they grabbed me and pulled me over to one of the Google Plus engineers. They explained it to him and said, okay, I want you guys to implement this. And I said, okay, like that's fine, but I was visiting Mountain View, and I said, like, I've got a plane to catch at 6 o'clock, so this has got to be fast. This is like 4 o'clock. So we talked about it, and he wrote the code. It was pretty easy. And I said, okay, I'll see you later. I'll check with you on if there's any issues. So I went to the airport. I flew back to Seattle, and then I logged in from the SeaTac airport. And I was going to just call in and find the engineer and say, how are things going? Are there any problems? What's going on? So I log in, and I'm trying to find the engineer, and all of a sudden, Vic pings me on IM and sends me a link. And then I hit the link, and I'm thrown into the Hangout, and there's Vic with this big glass of wine and like 8 or 9 other people, and he says, Chee! And then like he introduces me to all the other people on Google Plus, most of which I didn't know. And then that Hangout happened. And that Hangout persisted until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So that was like a 6-hour Hangout for the first Hangout. And then we pulled in people from Stockholm and people from Sydney, Australia, and people from Kirkland. And that just kind of went on and on and on. And from there, we then got sucked into the Google Plus team. And then kind of everything else evolved from there.
Wow, I mean that's that's the history of Hangouts. That's absolutely incredible. That must have been so cool getting that ping from Vic. So I mean, apart from that, one of the questions I had is, what is the coolest thing you've seen in a Hangout? I mean, apart from that first experience, there's been some really interesting things being posted on the network. People, obviously starting to do different shows. Using this platform in different ways. What's one of the most unique or the coolest things that you've seen, Chee?
We've seen a lot of really amazing things and really creative. Like I was in the Craig Luke's Brainiac Hangout, and that was really fun. I was in a Pictionary Hangout, and that was cool. Daria's concerts are amazing. Those are all like I don't know if I could choose any one thing, like event that sort of stands out as that super cool, like that uniquely cool in that way. But I'll say that the thing that sort of woke my eyes up and I find most impressive was like in the first week of Google Plus, we launched the thing and we were all nervous about like how Hangouts would hold up and whether people would get it or not and all that sort of stuff. And in the first week I was in this Hangout and everyone joined in and we had the limited invite, so people didn't know each other, right? Like you didn't have all your friends and family on there. So finding public Hangouts was the thing to do. So I posted it and I had people join from all around the world and people were excited to go in and they were talking with each other, right? And then at some point someone asked, hey, where are you guys from? And someone said, I'm from Russia. And someone said, I'm from Pakistan. And someone said, I'm from India. And someone said they were from, one person was actually from Iraq, and one person was Sweden and Canada. It was all around the world. And when everyone introduced themselves, like there was this pregnant pause where people were like, oh, and especially like Pakistan and India and Russia and like and Iraq and like there's this moment of like stereotype that kind of goes by people's minds of like, oh, I'm supposed to think about this, you in this way or something like that. And the conversation then when they picked up was very cautious. Like they were like, oh, what's it like over there? And then after like 5 or 10 minutes, the conversation kind of went back to normal. And then like you could see like friendships building and like that whole stereotype or the awkwardness go away and people were themselves again. And I think that people there sort of realize that people are people no matter where you are. And then as I see these Hangouts continue to go and people from all around the world getting together in Hangouts and talking and just being themselves, like for me, that's the real magic. That's the most exciting. It's not one event, but it's just people connecting all around the world and realizing that people are people no matter where they are. And I think that's overall by far the biggest magic for me.
No, and that's something you were quoted for in Reuters, and I thought this was one of the best quotes that I really think captured what you just talked about. And if you want to read this, it would sound better in your words.
So the whole serendipitous run across the Hangout, jump in, people flowing in and out is just very fluid. Like that is the essence of Hangouts. Like when people don't really think about like all the things they're supposed to do and they're just real with each other, right? That's what I love about Hangouts. When you see someone face to face, you see them eye to eye, it's a whole different experience than when you're chatting with people just in text, right? Like that connection is real and you can build real bonds. Several people have commented all these hurls where people are getting together and meeting in real life, and then they do that and they come away and they say, wow, like when I met the person in real life, it was just comfortable. Like they were what I expected, right? And I think that's cool. I think that's really super cool.
No, I think that's incredible. And what you've talked about is that moment of hesitation where, I'm sure certain prejudices are running through people's heads, and the fact that it's just not an issue here. The community is bigger than that, and that's been the incredible thing. I've witnessed it. You did a fantastic job of putting it into words, but I personally want to thank you for all the development and everything you guys have done to put this together for everyone. And I know the people watching also love and use this. I have a ton of people and connections I made on here that I would not have made otherwise. One of those being Megan, and Megan's actually, Chee, if you don't mind, going to handle a couple questions we have from the audience. Joe asked, how did they land on the 10 user limit in a Hangout? Was it out of design considerations for the screen sizes of a PC laptop, or was bandwidth the underlying issue?
So actually, the 10 user limit came out of sort of the social dynamics. One of the things that we try to do with Hangouts is just make things as real as possible. And I was commenting before where we had VIX Hangouts and all that sort of stuff. I remember a specific Hangout we had with them where we had, I think it was like 18 or 19 people in that Hangout. The technology held up for the most part, but the conversation did not. It became awkward. Like if you imagine that you're at a dinner table with like 19 people and you're all trying to have one conversation, it can get frustrating if you're not able to speak, or multiple people try to speak and they interrupt each other. And what naturally happens when a group gets too large is that the conversation shards. And we saw that dynamic when we had 18, 19, 20-person hangouts, that you didn't really have as healthy of a conversation. I think that really the healthiest conversations happen when there are like 5 or 6 or so people. Like that's when there's enough people to keep the thing going, have new fresh ideas and commentary, but then like not be overly stressful and not have someone sort of on the spot. But you increase that to 10 because you have some people who are more lurking or getting introduced to it. So at the end, we came around to 10 because it was more than 5 and less than 15. And that's kind of a good number for now.
Right.
I think that people have asked for like, well, can we add like 15 or 18 or 20? And I think that's really useful in a structured, maybe business setting, and that's something that we would consider as we grow Hangouts usage. But the challenge comes in is that if you really were to hang out with 20 people and they all try to talk and try to have a conversation, it doesn't work very well. But that's not something that people can self-limit. If you have your friend who wants to get in, would you really tell them, no, sorry, please stay out? Because nothing personal to you, but adding you would degrade the overall conversation. So you would not tell your friend to stay out. So you would extend it to 11th. And then you have another friend who wants to come in, and you wouldn't tell them to stay out, so you would go to 12, and eventually you can't help but to let the room go to 18. So Google will be the bad guy, and we'll put the limit at 10, so that you don't have to kick your friends out.
All right. That's a very good explanation to why that's set the way it is, and I definitely understand. I can't imagine having 20 people in the same hangout. Liz asks 2 questions, one very short. She says, Chee Chew looks way too young to have so much school and experience. How old are you? Also, I presume you're a Linux user. By the Tux shirt, got a favorite distro?
I'm actually 53. But I've had 4 facelifts, so it's okay. Seriously, I'm 41. And I used to be a Unix hacker way long back in college. And Athena was the thing. So back in college, Athena Unix, based off of BSD Unix, was the thing that everyone used. I haven't really hacked on Unix since then, so I don't have a current Linux favorite distro.
All right. And then our last audience submitted question comes from Gary Edberg. And Gary wants to know, were you on Commodore 64 or Atari back in the day?
I was on neither. I was a IBM PC kind of guy way back. And a large part of that was just like my family situation was that there was no way they could afford buying cassette games like that. So they got a reusable computer because that was good for education. And then I went and found games and played games and got into bulletin boards. It's sort of a matter of finances. My family, as I said, they were not very well off when I was growing up.
Well, then what was your favorite 8-bit game?
My favorite game, I like Zork a lot. What else? I remember I played Donkey Kong on the PC. I love that. And Frogger. I was actually quite good at Frogger. So it's kind of long old games. Also another way of dating me.
I can just see the Seinfeld tie-ins coming in now. But Chee, so yeah, there's a lot of audience participation, and that brings just one final question to wrap up. There's a lot of user feedback that's given. It's given in the comment thread, just advertising our interview in the comment thread for the live hangout, and I'm sure you guys get a plethora of user feedback based on the way this performs. I'm getting a dozen questions right now about things people want to know about the future of the product. Obviously, Google can't discuss any future releases or anything like that. Can't ask those questions. But how do you use the feedback that's given by users, and how highly is that weighed towards directions you guys take in future releases?
Well, we listen. We're very hungry for the feedback, so I'm very glad for people to send us all the feedback they have. When you hit send feedback, like it gets aggregated together, and then we end up getting a report that sort of pulls up the most commonly requested feature or behavior. The thing that's most valuable to me is when someone asks for a feature, most common thing I'll ask is, okay, why do you want it? because oftentimes the actual manifestation that someone wants might not be the solution that we end up giving, but I still want to solve the core, the core issue, question, or desire that they have. So, like trolling is a good example. Like people were asking for kick a lot early on because of trolls. You want to handle trolls. So we asked a lot of questions to understand the behaviors, how people were trolling, how often it was happening, and that whole dynamics. And the solution we came forth with was the way we're doing blocking. And that blocking mechanisms, our observation is that it largely handles the bulk of the troll cases without upsetting the dynamics that we want to preserve for Hangouts. So I listened to the feedback. I very much appreciate the feedback that we have, but the most important thing that we want to understand is not what the feature is that you want to solve, but what's the scenario that you want solved, and then we want to take that and sort of generalize that. The other thing that we're very sensitive about is we want the interface to be clean and simple. So we're not trying to throw in 1,000 features to handle 1,000 different scenarios. We try to roll things up and have simple solutions handle multiple cases. So that also then requires us to really wrap our heads around why someone wants something. Right?
So in essence, you want the utilization of the feature to be more like riding a bicycle than sitting in the cockpit of a 747.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, Chee, I just really want to thank you for the time that you've taken with me and Megan. And what I'd like to do at this point is this wraps up the official G Plus interview with Chee Chew, the Google engineer behind the Google Plus Hangouts. If you are not hanging out on Google Plus, you are missing out on quite possibly the coolest thing. I definitely know the coolest thing of the decade, but the coolest thing to hit social media. And as a means of discovery, this is something just unparalleled to anything else.